Hey everyone, you're listening to Party Time, My Golf Story with Kevin Walsh, and whatever special guest he has today, you can check me out on episode 9 of the podcast. Today I'm wearing Grayson clothes while I'm out practicing because I believe in look good, play good, and follow me on Instagram, Sophia Warren Golf, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers. And the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com. Now here's your host, Kevin Walsh.
Hey everyone, welcome to the program. Our dear friend, our old friend, Dr. Bob Winters is back to talk about a topic that we talked about at the end of July, early August, Tommy Fleetwood. Now, a lot of people thought Tommy was struggling, and the evidence was there that he was struggling closing the deal. And we saw a profound case of that at the Travelers Championship. Those that live in the greater New England area still know that as a Greater Hartford Open, not the Travelers Championship. And some of us were worried about Tommy, like the longer this goes on, it might be hurtful to him in the long run. And then I had a conversation with Dr. Bob Winters, who's coached on the mental side of the game numerous major championship winners. If anybody knows the mind better than Dr. Bob Winters, I'm not sure who it is. He was not nearly as fearful about Tommy, and he saw something a lot different than what I saw on that Sunday in Hartford. So he's back, and we're going to rehash that, and we're going to look forward, and we're going to talk about the Ryder Cup and the pressure that's involved in that. But as he often does, he gets us inside the mind of competitive golfers, gives us the tools that we can use for ourselves, and have a greater understanding of the mysterious side of golf, if you will. Big thanks to our title sponsors, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try a Party. It is made for golfers, by golfers. And by the way, there's a new flavor soon to be released, Birdie Juice. Oh, that's going to be a hit. That's a combination of lemonade and transfusion. Soon to be released Birdie Juice, part of Party. If your dream is to live in a golf real estate community like Lakewood National Golf Club, where this podcast originates from, nobody better than the golf real estate pros of Gene Walsh, Vince Vizzacaro, and Samantha Walsh from suncoastdreams.com, a division of fine properties in the greater Sarasota area. And if all this golf has you tuckered out and you need to recharge yourself with a cold water plunge with red light sauna, or a biocharge, or even a really nice massage, BioLit Spa in downtown Sarasota has got you covered. So that's the preamble. Let's bring the man of the hour in, Dr. Bob Winters. So I was going to reach out to you. No sooner had Tommy Fleetwood closed the deal at the Tour Championship, but you beat me to it. And I'm here to fall on my sword. I'm here to eat crow. Let's talk it out. Let's go back to Hartford and what I thought I saw, what you thought you saw, and then what happened in Atlanta.
Well, Kevin, it's great to be back, with you. And so what I saw in Hartford, was just a great, display of golf competition. That's really what it's all about. It's never over till it's over. And as anyone who's played this game competitively, whether it's at the club level, junior level, college, or even, really top amateur level, just, bringing, it all home, closing the door, closing the deal. It's always easier to talk about than it is to do. And I have seen, many times great players who have had many, many close finishes, and they've had a lot of runner-up, third and fourth and fifth place finishes. They have put themselves into contention. And as we know in almost every sport, in order to have unbelievable success, you have to have some experience at coming close, of failing, and learning from those failings and going forward. I mean, even earlier in the year, we looked at Rory McIlroy. I mean, he'd gone 10 years without winning a major, and he actually had learned from all those failing experiences, being there at Augusta, and he had to get through it. And there was many times he fell on his face during that final round, but he finally hit some clutch shots, and he finally persevered and got through. Now with Tommy Fleetwood, I see the same thing. And it's really crazy because I know you do a lot of caddying, but his caddy, Ian Finnis, I believe, had given him just a lot of great, positive motivational quotes during the round. They've been together since, I think, 2016. They've been, childhood friends. And it's kind of a contrast in height. If you take a look at Ian, he's about 6'7" and Tommy's about 5'9". And, but they make a great duo. And he was telling him more than anything, he says, let's just go get it. That's really what, he had in his yardage book. Just go get it. And then he was always emphasizing process over prize. So when Tommy was coming down, that stretch, Tommy Fleetwood, was really, just an unbelievable role model for resiliency, for persistence, for grit, but also for staying focused and staying, in what we call this flow state, being in, just the very best possible place he could be at that time. Now, being in flow, being in the zone, those are some real special things. But sometimes, and I've actually, kind of got this on the board here, Tommy Fleetwood's keys for winning. And what I did, Kevin, is I went through here and I actually sort of broke down, really what Tommy was doing. And I was listening to Tommy, obviously I've watched him for a long time. And let me say this, first of all, kudos and congratulations to Tommy Fleetwood. Absolutely one of the game's great ambassadors, just a gentleman, just a peach of a guy. And he and his great friend, Justin Rose, who I've known for years, are just two, the kindest, finest, gentlemen golfers that this planet has seen. And I'm just so glad that he actually persevered and got through it. Because as we were talking about the last time you and I were together, it's pretty easy for those of us, what we call, sitting back, the armchair quarterbacks. Hindsight's 20/20. Oh, you should have done this. You should have done that. But when you are in the midst of competition and you are just trying to do the very best with what you have, it's pretty easy for us to cast aspersions and go, he's not going to get the deal done. I'm just going to throw the red flag of choker on him. And so for him to actually battle through all of these unmet expectations from the media, from everyone, and even to battle through the internal demons of self-doubt was a huge victory, for Tommy Fleetwood. And let's face it, Tommy Fleetwood is a grizzled, veteran. He's a great professional. He's won many times. And the silver medal winner, at the Olympics here just recently. So, he's been a staunch member of the Ryder Cup, victorious European Ryder Cup team. So Tommy Fleetwood is no stranger, to competition. And so one of the first things, I asked, and I've done, several different educational seminars since you and I've talked, and since Tommy Fleetwood has won, I've always asked people, and I'll ask you, Kevin, what do you think Tommy Fleetwood felt after it was all said and done? Do you think he felt joy or do you think he felt relief?
I think he felt both very profoundly and about equally. And I think he was just tingling all over.
I think that's exactly what, I felt too. I think it was a combination platter of joy and relief that he finally got the job done, finally got that 500-pound gorilla, off of his back. And everyone was saying, when are you going to win? When are you going to win? When are you going to win? And people don't really understand, that unmet expectation. Because think about it. If you came home and your spouse said to you, did you fix the plumbing underneath the sink? When are you going to get to that? Are you going to fix that? When are you going to fix that? And everybody asks you, are you going to fix that? And you are asked that 25, 30 times a day. And that's really, kind of really what it is. Every day he has to, answer those questions. Do you think you're going to win? When are you going to win? When are you going to win? And so many golfers ask themselves that very, very question. When? When am I going to win? And I've always said this to all of my players. You will start to win and win a lot when you give up the need and the want and the trying to win so bad. When you actually just stay focused on playing the game, beating the course, beating yourself. It's funny how winning comes to you. And that's sort of really, what happened to Tommy, because as he was coming down those last 2 or 3 holes, I mean, he was staying in his lane. He was staying focused. It was one after one after one until Tommy was done. But all at the same time, you had people like Scotty Scheffler coming in. You had Russell Henley. You had Patrick Cantley. You had all these people all around, and you can't control them. But all you can do is stay in your little lane, maintain your process until, all the shots are counted and done. And that's what he did. And so when he lets out that big, huge, yeah, that was, just many, many years, of joy, relief, frustration, and exuberance. I mean, he's ebullient. It's fantastic. Yeah. So I was really happy for him, for that. So
I am too. I think a lot of people are happy for him. He's such a likable guy. He's got great hair. Not as good as yours. I mean, if you do.
Yeah, he's got a lot going on back here too. That's good, But the one thing that I did notice when he was talking about his winner's interview, and I think that's really one of the things where you learn so much in this game, whether you're a student of the game or you're a mental coach or just a golf coach or just a golf aficionado, to listen to what the winners say. And I thought it was interesting, that he said, well, first and foremost, he said, I just love to compete. I just love to play the game. And he said, and when I compete,
isn't it? So even though he's kind of getting his ass kicked with the humbling nature of the game when he was going through it, it's not like he's doing something that he hates and he's just like, I've had enough of this. He kind of likes it. I mean, you got to be a little bit off to play competitive golf, right?
Well, it's like Hogan said. I mean, recreational golf and tournament golf is like comparing ice hockey to tennis. I mean, they're two totally different animals. Mm-hmm. But I think he says some things here, and I kind of want to pull these out here while I've got kind of a little, white
props. Let's go with props. I like props.
Joy or relief, I happen to believe it was both. But the first thing he says, listen, I'm a professional golfer, and all my life, I just love to compete. I just love to play. I just love to get in and mix it up. And I think, that's something that some people have and some people don't have. Some people don't really like the whole notion of competition. They don't like to put themselves in contention. It's almost confrontational for them. It's sort of an ego threat. But for a player like Tommy Fleetwood, win, lose, or draw, he just loves, to mix it up and get into the competition. So his philosophy about going in and really striving to win, do the very best he can, and let the chips fall where they may, I mean, that's the first thing he says. He says, I love to compete. The second thing he says, and I think it's really important for all of us, as golfers, recreational, competitive, or whatever, he says, I try and be as positive as I possibly can. He goes, I learned years ago that nothing positive comes out of negative thinking or negative actions. So he was always trying to be positive, and Ian, his caddy, was always giving him sort of positive motivational quotes. Let's just go get it. You're still in it. Let's go. Process over prize. So he had, some support, but his self-talk was very positive, very uplifting. As he's going on in this round, he's feeling the pressure, absolute, enormous pressure like no one could probably even imagine. And he wasn't playing his very best game. So he didn't have his A game, B game. He was struggling. And he said, I had to recenter. I had to reset. I had to adapt. As we know, golf is not a game of perfect. It is a game of confidence, but it's mostly a game of creativity and adaptability. He adapted. He found something in the middle of that round, right around holes 11 and 12, something with his swing. Right. He was even talking about sort of changing his routine just a little bit. Not much, just to make sure, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to think before I step into the ball. So he adapted. And this is the thing that I think is the most important. He said, I moved through the doubt. The doubt. He goes, the doubt is there. And I hear this all the time from players. And people go, what does that mean? And the very best analogy that I can use for that is that I've worked with some professional surfers before in my career. And when they're out in the water and they're looking for that big swell, they're reading the waves like golfers read the greens. Yeah. They're looking for that swell. Now, when we go into the ocean as human beings, we have to remember one thing. We can drown, okay? And that we're bait when we actually go into the ocean. So we've got sharks and all other sorts of predators in the sea.
Oh, you're talking to a surfer. I know all this.
Yeah.
When you're talking about wave selection, that factors into the score is the wave you select, not just what you do on it.
Absolutely. So when they actually get in there, they realize that there's all sorts, of different sharks in the water, all sorts of different creatures. I mean, I live, an hour from, New Smyrna Beach, the shark bite capital of the world. Yeah. And so when those surfers go there in Cocoa Beach, they realize there's all sorts of sharks, white tips, black tips, spinner sharks, sand sharks, lemon sharks, even some great whites have been, spotted there rarely. But as they're going through, all of that doubt, all of those sharks are in the water, but they have to sort of disconnect from that and focus on what's the task, what's my job. It's to get up on this board, to ride this wave and ride the swell all the way in. And that's the same thing, with Tommy Fleetwood. Tommy Fleetwood and every golfer, doubt is all over the place. Do you choose to glob onto it, or do you choose to stay focused and let, the doubt and let all the interference gate out or drift away? And that's exactly what he did. And he moved through the doubt. And then he did something I think was one of the most important things. He talked about, it's a lot easier to talk about resilience than it is to really be resilient. It's like when we talk about being patient. To me, patience is confidence waiting to happen. You have to stay patient. You have to persist. You have to have the grit to say, this is what I do. Everything is going to work out. And most people become so worried, to become impatient. They start, to think, what if? And they just are hell in a handbasket from really where they need to be. But he said, I persisted, not just today, not just these past weeks. I've persisted for years. And I always persisted until I succeeded. That is really a great strategy. And I first, really heard about this from a great book about the greatest salesman ever known. Og Mandingo wrote the book. And he said, the secret, to any type of success is to persist until you succeed. And I love what Tommy said about this. He said, I stayed in the fight. And he goes, and even whether I win, whether I bugger it up or I lose, he goes, I move on because I remind myself one thing. It's still just golf. He goes, in the greater, scope of things. And this is one of the things I loved, from his interview. He said, my family always talked about one thing. It's before even being a great, golfer, be a great person, be a kind person. And, and then all the other good things, will follow later. And I thought that was just a fantastic way to actually end, a winner's, presentation, a winner's thoughts on his performance. He said, win or lose, it's still just golf. It's still just a game. And I love it. He says, whether I win, whether I bugger it up or I lose, I move on. And I think, for all of us, if we understand that, we're just doing the very best we can with what we've got. And every day's different. And this is a tough game, in the first place. Oh, so sure. He kept giving himself positive thoughts. He stayed true to his process. He persisted until he succeeded. And finally, what he did, he accepted. He accepted whether he won, whether he lost, whether he just buggered it up, whatever. It is what it is. It's still just golf. I'm still Tommy Fleetwood. I'll move on and I'll live my life. And I think, those are just great, grounded, very well balanced, thought out opinions, from Tommy Fleetwood.
That reminds me of something that I thought about in college when I struggled my freshman year and I couldn't crack the lineup. Tom Pernice Jr., I'm sure you know the backstory with him. He had a child who was born blind. And if you look back at those great UCLA golf teams, Corey Pavin, Steve Pavin were on the team. They were all good, but Tom was the best. He was the one that was supposed to make it. And he probably had the lesser career of them all. And I heard him say one time, I couldn't believe how much of my self-esteem was wrapped up in my golf game. If I played poorly, I felt like I was a bad person. He said, my God, after all, it's just a game. I'm a good person. I'm a good father. I'm a good husband. That's enough. If I could just let that side go of having my results wrapped up in my self-esteem, I should play better golf. It was like a light went off in my head. Dr. Bob, are you familiar with his story? And
yeah, absolutely. But it's a story that is just blown up, thousands and thousands of times a year. We just hear the story about, TP. We hear about his story, but think about, all the different, players over the years, who feel like, gosh, I had a great day today. Wow. I'm buying today. This is good. I feel really good about myself. And then when they have a bad day, they go, I stink as a person. I'm pathetic. And I don't want anybody around me. And life's too short to feel like that. And what I'm always telling people, I said, here's the way we have to put things in perspective. I think golfers sometimes have a miscued, what I call par-spective. It's all about golf. It's all about par. It's all about the score. You have to have a grounded life perspective. Most people who've had some sort of injury or some sort of life-threatening illness, it gives you a whole different viewpoint about really what's important. Whether I break 80 or I shoot, 75. I mean, that's not half as important as my health, as my family, as my career, or anything like that. So, I mean, a lot of times I always tell people, listen, you feel like you've had a really bad day. Go to maybe a hospital, to a children's hospital. We have a great one here, the Arnold Palmer and Winnie Palmer, hospital. And you have, these little kids who, suffering, and they're going through chemotherapy and cancer and all sorts of different major illnesses. Boy, I tell you what, you walk through, one of those halls and you see, what they're dealing with. It sure, makes, the game of golf seem, pretty irrelevant. So when I have, people talk about, my self-esteem, my self-concept is wrapped up in my score. I'm always trying to help them develop, different facets of their personality, of their being. Because, so many young players that I'm dealing with right now, when people ask them about themselves, they don't ask about what are my other interests? What are you doing? How's your schoolwork going? And, what are you doing, for fun? They always ask the same things. Are you playing a tournament this weekend? Do you think you'll win?
You playing? How's it
going?
How
you playing? It's always about, golf. And many of my athletes, and I've got a lot of them now going to college and getting ready to go to tour schools. Many of them, they just don't want to be a one-trick pony. They want to say, I'm very well balanced. So the more balanced, we have, instead of eat, sleep, drink, golf, I think it makes, hopefully more longevity in your career, at least, more balance in your life. Because, when the golf goes, what happens after that? If you're not able to play, you're just done. And I happen to believe, and this is my personal opinion, is that when parents, coaches, and other people have, a young star or starlet coming on, and they, you eat, sleep, drink, golf. You got to do this. You've got to work. You got to work. And it's just eat, sleep, drink, golf. They become very one-dimensional. And then what happens when they don't make it? All right. When they had maybe a little bit of success, but then they don't make it. They're not prepared for anything else. So, to me, that's, the devastating part. And I deal a lot with that, sort of the post-performance rehabilitation. Mm-hmm. Where do we go after golf? And so I kind of deal, with a lot of different athletes going, like that. But then an athlete will go, well, I've never won before. And I'm going, where's the joy? I thought you played golf for fun. What was your motivation? Was it for ego recognition? Was it for mastery? Did you just want to find out how great you could be, or did you, want personal glory? So we have to kind of, separate those two things. And for me, it's not so much about the destination, about the outcome. It's about, man, I had a blast going out there and finding out how good I could be. And I think, when you do that, fun is the first three letters of fundamental. It's fun, it's mental. Right. I think Bruce Crampton,
sure
Kevin. Yeah, I think Bruce Crampton said it best. He said the very best quote I've ever heard about the game, especially competitive golf.
What's that?
He said, golf is a game of compromise between what your ego, wants you to do, what your experience tells you that you can do, and what your nerves let you do. So I thought that was pretty good. What your ego
says. A lot. That's deep. That's a lot in a little, but that's it, isn't it? That was
Bruce Crampton, great player from Australia. I mean, somebody I really, thought was a great player, sort of a grizzled veteran and tough, because there were a lot of great players, from Australia, David Graham, Bruce Devlin, Bruce Crampton. But I love that. It's a compromise between what your ego wants you to do, what your experience, and competence says, tells you to do, and then what your nerves allow you to do.
I hear his voice in my head as I get into the latter years of my golfing life. I didn't know he said that, but I have a similar voice. It's just like, I know what I want to do. I know what I used to be able to do. Then I'm like, I can't do that anymore. And I'm feeling the nerves. So I'm just going to punt it down there. You know what I mean? Just put the pressure on my wedges.
One of the things, it's the most common question, that I get asked by all athletes and especially golfers. They say, Dr. Winters, I know what it is I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just not doing what it is that I know. And I'm sitting here going, what? And you go, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just not doing it. I'm going, well, if you know what to do, then why aren't you aspiring towards doing that? Why aren't you doing that? They go, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. And so I always, sort of challenge them. I said, well, either you aren't doing it because you're apathetic or lazy, or you don't know what to do, or you have a scotoma, you have a blind spot, and you really don't know what to do. And so let's find out, what you need to be doing, and let's do it. Because I think Peyton Manning said it great years ago. He says pressure, especially, competitive pressure, is something you feel when you don't know what the hell you're doing. So I'm always really big about, why am I doing this? Let's find out your why, and let's really understand why we're doing it. So then when we know what to do, let's go in and let's do it. And that's why Ian Finnis, Tommy Fleetwood's caddy, said, process over prize money. Just go get it. Just beat the course, play Tommy Fleetwood golf, one shot at a time, and let's stick to that process. And lo and behold, Tommy Fleetwood, wins the Tour Championship.
Fine, wins of all the things, or like a major, finally wins in America. And I would imagine this would lead to more winning. We said that about Nick Faldo. We know about his troubles in the past. Well, he got that fixed. Same with David Duval. David Duval fell on his sword as many times as Tommy Fleetwood did before he broke through. Do you see a similar path ahead for Tommy, Dr. Bob?
Absolutely. I mean, let's not forget Hall of Famer Tom Watson. Tom Watson was known as, a choker. He couldn't close the deal. Goes on to become, one of the greatest major champions of all. Tom Watson. Sir Nick Faldo. British press, tabloids killed him. They called him Nick Foldo because he kept folding. I mean, that's really what they talked to. Yes. I mean, so listen, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Everybody wants to throw this red flag of BS and go, the guy's choking. He's choking, never going to get it done. I'll tell you what, I see a lot of different things. It isn't so much choking, Kevin, that I see a lot of players do. It's that they're caught maybe in a novel or unfamiliar situation, a situation they haven't been with in a while. And they don't handle that situation maybe as prudently or as nicely as they wanted to. A great LPGA player named Kelly Robbins, was a great player in the 80s and early 90s. She said, the reason we practice so hard at this game and spend so many hours, diligently practicing this game is so that we can put ourselves in a competitive pressure situation and handle that situation nicely. I thought that was a very simple yet very specific answer to really, the ultimate question. Why are we practicing? Well, we're practicing not to develop just automaticity, but we're practicing to enhance our competence level. And by doing that, we create, self-confidence, movement confidence. And then we have, the feeling like, you know what? I can do this. And I think that right there, the 4 words that I always tell people, it isn't just go get it. It's like, I can handle this. I can handle this. And whatever you face, if you can say, I'll get through this. I can handle this. I can handle this. 4 words. Tell you what, that gives you a lot of personal power. And that's really what we want when we talk about the zone of control. Are you in control, or is the situation or the golf course in control? And that's the whole notion. We talk about perceived control. That is closely aligned with true confidence.
Well, I imagine if you can say it to yourself, I'm in control, that doesn't mean you have to feel great. Doesn't mean you don't feel shaky hands a little bit, because even the best of the best, they have that too. They just have the experience of dealing with it as best they can. Dr. Bob, I wanted to ask you about the upcoming Ryder Cup, and we'll make this the last one. Dr. Bob Winters, the Confidence Doctor, is our guest here on Party Time, brought to you by Violet Spa in downtown Sarasota. If you need to unwind after a round of golf, check out Violet Spa. If you need a good beverage on the course or afterward, then try Party. Oh, new flavor coming out, by the way, birdie juice, soon to be here. Keep an eye on that. And if your dream is to live in a golf resort community like Lakewood National Golf Club in the greater Sarasota area, nobody better than the golf real estate pros, Gene Walsh, Samantha Walsh, and Vince Visicaro, SuncoastDreams.com. Got you covered. Can you talk about the pressure of the Ryder Cup? I hear all the players talk about how there's regular PGA Tour pressure, major championship pressure, and then the Ryder Cup is through the roof. And I kind of get it, but I'm just wondering, I would like to feel it and not just hear it. Can you articulate something about that?
Here's really what I think it is. I mean, for folks back home, imagine you're going into your hometown gymnasium for a basketball arena, whether it's can seat 2,000, 4,000, 10,000, and you've got to make a free throw in basketball, and the whole crowd, as soon as you enter, the gymnasium, the crowd is yelling at you, screaming at you, unbelievable, almost like blowing whistles or doing whatever. And now you've got to step up, to that free throw line, and you've got to actually, hit a shot. All right. Imagine doing that for 4.5, 5 hours. That's really what, I equate it to. I'm a Hoosier kid. Okay. I come from Indiana. We were actually dribbling basketballs before we were probably walking. All right. And
are you taking me to a scene of Hoosiers and Bobby Plum? What's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was on the set of Hoosiers. I was going to be, an extra on the set of Hoosiers years ago, and I bumped into Gene Hackman, and he said, "Are you in this scene?" For some reason, I was there, and I go, "No." I said, "I'd love to be," but yeah, the Hoosiers. That's really how it is. It's just so much. It's on you right there, and that's the whole thing. When we're on the football field, we've got, the crowd's kind of up here in the stands, but when you're right here in the Ryder Cup, I mean, people are on you. I mean, they're just really on you. And they are 8, 10, 12 people deep, and they are just fervid, wild, crazy. And it's just a different level of excitement. Plus, you want to play well for yourself. You want to play well for your teammates, for your chums. You want to play well to represent, the Europe, Union. You want to, play well for Europe. You want to play well, for America. You just don't want anybody down. And I got to tell you, the Ryder Cup has created some unbelievable stars that it has. It's also ruined several careers. I don't really want to even talk about that. But I mean, we can see the fallout from players who really were just devastated, who actually went out the deep end at different Ryder Cups. I remember years ago, though, being at Muirfield Village and, having, a chance to talk, a little bit, with, Seve, Sam Torrance was there. Bernhard was there. You had, Woozy, you had Faldo, you had Sandy Lyle, even Darcy. This was the first time, and I think this is the whole thing about the Ryder Cup that I love. Tony Jacklin and I have talked about this several times. And he did a great job of getting, Great Britain, and Ireland, getting all of that, and then turning it into the, sort of the Europeans. He said, listen, we're not going to be second rate anymore. We're not going to be just, the boot kicker, get kicked around by the Americans. And he was talking about, we're going to do things first class. We're going to fly on the Concorde, to America. And when they first came to America, I think it was at PGA, National, where Seve came into the locker room after, Europe came so close to winning. But I think it was Lanny Watkins that actually sank, a winning putt on the final hole to actually secure the point.
Yeah, he knocked a wedge with it a foot, and Jack Nicklaus kissed the divot.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he waterboarded Barber with champagne afterwards.
Yeah.
I've got the inside track on that.
That's great. So the point was, Seve, came in, and that's the whole point, because Seve wasn't going to be on the Ryder Cup until Tony Jacklin went in and said, hey, I need you. We're going to turn, Europe around. We're going to win this thing. So he came in, and I love this about the history of the Ryder Cup, because it's huge. He came in, he looked around, everybody's kind of, he goes, what the hell? Why you guys got your heads down? He goes, look how far we've come. We took them right to the ropes. He goes, we're going to win this thing. He goes, if we didn't do it today, we're going to do it at the Belfry here in a couple of years. And that's exactly, what they did. Now, when they came to Muirfield Village, Jack's golf course, Muirfield Village, Jack, was the captain. Boom. I was there. I saw these, and I talked, some of the Europeans. And the one thing that the Europeans had, they had the eye of the tiger. They did. They knew they were going into sort of kind of hostile country right there, being in Jack's, this is his backyard. And so they united on that. And the reason why I'm talking about this is now we've got our upcoming, Ryder Cup up at, Bethpage.
Oh my gosh. That's going to be something. I'm so looking. I want the Long Island stereotypical male that's been talked about.
Hey, yeah. And that's going to be great. But now a lot of people ask me, goes, what do you think? And I go, I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be a dogfight, and I'm an equal opportunity sports psychologist. I love to help people. I don't care if you're European, you're American, whatever country you play with. But I got to tell you, when you're coming into this such a hostile environment, and it gives, a lot of Americans think they have an advantage. But the one thing I look at this European team, and it is deep, and it is strong, and it has experience, and it has grit. And I got to tell you, sometimes playing in a really hostile environment really, is a cohesive factor for the team. And they actually say, all right, okay, we're ready. And they become very adversarial. And the more that you actually, yell against them, the more it kind of turns them up. It kind of gets them motivated. I mean, think about it years ago. I can't remember where it was, but Rory's going, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. And they kept going back and forth. He and Patrick Reed were going back and forth, so.
That was in Minnesota.
That was in Minnesota. And it was, the classic. Also another thing in Medina, with, Ian Poulter. And Ian Poulter, was real and hadn't really done anything all year. And then he comes into this Ryder Cup, and obviously Ryder Cups made Ian Poulter a star because he always rose, and the cream comes to the surface, to the top. Yeah. And he always rose to the top. And he just loved that. He loved that in-your-face golf. And I think, that's really what we're going to have, at Bethpage. So I don't want to say, one team is going to have, an edge over the other, because to me, you could sit here and say, well, these people on paper are this, or they have this, and we will talk it ad nauseum, okay, about who's going to win. For me, it is probably one of the most exciting events, that I've been to, that I watch, that I counsel people on. It's going to be a lot of fun. It is going to be something that every person, I don't care what sport you're in, they love the Ryder Cup because it's different. It has a different intensity. And as I said, if you think about, just trying to make that free throw, you got all these people yelling at you. Some people saying, miss it, miss it. And other people going, yeah. I mean, you have that for like 5 hours straight. I mean, you have that for several days. And you've got the buildup going on for several days. So it's quite, it's quite a fascinating, tournament, quite a fascinating event. I can't. I'm excited.
I am too, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Somewhere in all that maelstrom and all that pressure and everything else, those that succeed are going to have to find a little quiet place between their ears just for a couple seconds, and then they can get engaged with the crowd again. And what do you say we talk about it afterward? Sound good to you, Dr. Bob?
Yeah, that sounds fantastic to me. And I hope, everybody, has enjoyed, what we've talked about today with Tommy Fleetwood. If they can just use a couple of his tidbits and just stay in the moment and just do the very best you can and then live with it. Whether you win, have a great shot, bugger it up or lose, hey, it's still the greatest game ever invented.
It is what it is. And once you can accept before you hit that shot that could be catastrophic, I'm going to live with the results, even if they're catastrophic, and I'm going to move on. That's my takeaway. And one of my caddy buddies who's chasing the dream has shot a 58 and a 59. That's part of his thought process is like, I am willing to accept the results, whatever they are. And that was like another light that went off in my head, just like Tom Pernice Jr., when he said, I'm not letting my self-esteem, how I feel about myself as a person, be commensurate with how I feel about myself as a golfer. And those are good life lessons with everything that we can apply outside of golf.
Let me add just a little caveat to that. Acceptance, most people don't understand what acceptance is. Acceptance is sort of a neutral realization that something has happened. To accept something doesn't mean you have to like it. I mean, you don't have to like, missing a 3-foot putt to win the championship. You don't have to like hitting a shot in the water. But you have to ask, where is my focus? Where is my intention? I wasn't trying to do that. It is what it is. And no amount of belly aching, pity partying, bitching and moaning is going to accept or change the fact that what happened happened. So acceptance is sort of this neutral realization. It is what it is. I'm going to have to put it behind me and move on. So acceptance is really closely aligned with patience, keeping, your composure, not losing it. And as I've always said, patience is confidence waiting to happen. So continue doing the good stuff, accept it, Hakuna Matata, put the past behind you, move forward. And that's why it's always great. I'm looking forward to this next shot.
There's always a next shot. There's always another hole or a round.
I hope so. I'm always looking for that next shot. It's like,
me too.
It's like my friend David Ledbetter was always talking about it. And I asked him, I said, how you doing? He goes, it's a lot better, to be taking divots than to have divots thrown on you in the ground, right?
Yes.
So you're talking about being on this side of the sod. So I think that's always kind of a nice life lesson. So I'm always looking for that next shot for sure, Kevin.
Well, yeah, that too. And just life is a gift in and of itself. We're so lucky that golf is in our lives. Always enjoy the time, Dr. Bob. I feel better. I feel better for the experience. I know our listeners and viewers do too. So come on back. Good. Let's talk after the Ryder Cup. Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. Dr. Bob Winters has been our guest here on Part T Time, brought to you by the Golf Real Estate Pros, Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. SuncoastDreams.com. If you want to live in a place like Lakewood National Golf Club, good time to buy. Gene, Vince, and Samantha Walsh got you covered. Part T Golf Drinks. If you want a real cocktail on the golf course and a new flavor coming out, Birdie Juice. Look for it. And if you need to unwind after a tough round of golf, then go to Violet Spa in downtown Sarasota. For Dr. Bob Winters, the Confidence Doctor, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time on Part T Time, My Golf Story.
You've been listening to It's Part T Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Part T Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the Golf Real Estate Pros, Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com or call 941-220-4000.